And look at this on a bank holiday, how well attended we are. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. The Board of Deputies is a proudly Zionist organization. We have a deep connection to the land and the people of Israel, as it fights a war on 8 fronts that it did not start, as Israeli hostages languish in Hamas's terror tunnels, as we see a massive rise in anti-Semitism here and around the diaspora, and as we mourn the loss of 2 young Israeli diplomats, Sarah Milgram and Laron Lishinsky, murdered in a terrorist attack in Washington, D.C. this week. Since the start of this war, we have worked in support of 4 key goals: free the hostages, prevent Hamas and the axis of terror from ever being able to repeat 7th October, ensure the flow of aid into Gaza, and work towards a sustainable peace and security for Israelis, Palestinians, and the wider Middle East. This afternoon, I will give an update on where we see each of these items and the next steps we're taking to pursue them. This Wednesday marks 600 days since 7th October, and there are still 58 hostages held captive by Hamas in Gaza. Up to 23 are still alive. We have raised the issue with governments here in the UK, in Israel, and in the Arab world, held events at Downing Street, in Trafalgar Square, and in Hyde Park. We've held weekly vigils in Whitehall and outside the Scottish Parliament. We have worn our yellow ribbons and our dog tags. We have worked with synagogues to adopt hostages. We have continued to meet and share the testimonies of the hostage families. This week, we're going to push forward with 2 new initiatives. On Wednesday, we're going to ask you, our deputies and your communities, to change your profile pictures on social media to yellow ribbons, and we're sharing a graphic of that. Let us flood the internet with the cry for justice and the cry for freedom. Let my people go. And we're going to expand our Adopt a Hostage scheme by asking all of our communities to adopt at least 2 hostages each, 1 living and 1 presumed dead. Sarah Radovan will be getting in touch with you and your communities about this week. All need to be remembered, and all need to come home. We will not stop until the last hostage is back. Bring them home now. Stopping Hamas terror is crucial to lasting peace. Israel did not start this war. Before 7th October, there was a ceasefire. Hamas broke that ceasefire with a campaign of terror, murder, rape, destruction, and kidnap. We all want this war to end as soon as possible, but it cannot end in a way that just starts the clock until the next 7th October and the next war. That would be good for neither Israelis nor Palestinians. The UK and international partners must keep up the pressure on Hamas and the axis of terror. Nobody should forget how this war started. Nobody should forget that Hamas has promised to repeat this again if they can. We were key players in the successful campaigns to proscribe Hamas and Hezbollah, and we will continue to work with the government to proscribe Hamas's allies too. This week, the UK government took a decisive step towards our ask around the proscription of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, announcing new legislation around the proscription of state threats. We are also pursuing the proscription of the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigades, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, and the Houthis. This week, while we were in Israel, we had to join Israelis in bomb shelters because of incoming missiles and drones from Yemen. Some of us, multiple times. This is not an acceptable way to live. The Houthis have also disrupted international shipping and raised prices for the British public. The UK has taken part in missions to diminish Houthi capabilities, and it is time for the UK to proscribe the Houthis too. While Hamas and Islamic Jihad have brought chaos to the region, it is important that innocent Palestinian civilians do not pay the price for the crimes of the terrorists. Put simply, food should not be used as a weapon of war. Israel must ensure the supply to Gaza, and Hamas must not steal it when it comes in. This has been a key objective of us throughout this war. This week, once again, we have been clear to Israeli leaders that we need to see aid flowing into Gaza. Not a basic amount, but enough to feed the civilian population. And we've been clear to British leaders that Hamas must not steal aid when it gets there. A mechanism must be found which ensures secure supply of that aid to Gaza. We want this war to end as soon as possible. And when it does, we want it to end for good. We want to see lasting peace and security for Israelis, Palestinians, and the wider Middle East. We need to break the cycle of conflict that has cost far too many lives, whether Israeli, Palestinian, or across the region. Defeating Hamas necessarily has military components. They are an armed terrorist organization after all. But Hamas is also an idea built of despair. Replacing despair with hope is a key part of fighting Hamas too. 7th October 2023 showed that the doctrine of the last 15 years of conflict management has failed. It merely breeds hatred, despair, and the extremism that drives people into the arms of Hamas. We need to move from conflict management to conflict resolution. That is why we will continue to work with partners who promote peace. The two-state solution is clearly not as popular as it once was, but we are yet to hear a more convincing alternative. Until we do, we will be creating the space and making the case to give peace a new chance. We will also look to play our part in expanding the Abraham Accords. We will continue and look to increase our engagement with embassies and governments of Arab and Muslim majority countries and with their diaspora communities here in the UK as well. And there are further lessons to learn. Launching the attack on 7th October was not a random choice by Hamas. They struck them because they could see that Israel was weak and divided, with a government pursuing policies that were turning citizen against citizen. They struck them because they were desperate to prevent Israel normalizing with Saudi Arabia. That would have been game over for Hamas, with Israel further integrated into the region. There are two important lessons for Israeli leaders to draw from this. One, we need an end to the policies that needlessly divide the Israeli public. Find points of consensus. Stop seeing each other as the enemy. And also, if Hamas sees peace with Saudi Arabia as a defeat, we should want to achieve that. I have some further observations too. Firstly, the situation in the West Bank is out of control. Palestinian terrorism remains a serious concern there too, and we mourn the recent murder of 9-month pregnant Sila Gez, while she was on the way to hospital to give birth. Settler violence against Palestinians, and as we discussed last time, even against British rabbis, is unacceptable and has to stop. Once again, Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich are a stain on the Zionist project. It seems that nearly every time they open their mouths, something appalling comes out. They need to be reined in. Ideally, they ought to be kicked out. Let me be clear. We strongly oppose rhetoric and actions aimed at the permanent forced displacement of populations, including the civilian population of Gaza. Notwithstanding all of the above, we believe it was a mistake for the UK to suspend talks around an enhanced free trade agreement with Israel. Further trade is in the interests of both countries. Experience tells us that Israel is more likely to listen to a country it regards as a friend. That is the route to influence the UK wishes to have. Of course, we want the UK and Israel to be as close as possible. We love them both dearly. Seeing them quarrel is like watching our parents quarrel. As we have done over the last week in Jerusalem, the Board of Deputies will work to narrow gaps and repair bridges. The conflict has certainly kept us very busy over the recent period, but that has not stopped us pushing forward on all of our priorities. On Monday, 1st of June, our team will mark 1 year since we took office. And we look back with immense pride at all we have achieved together alongside Michael and our brilliant staff team. In September, we brought to you our board plan for the triennium. We listened to your feedback, and in October, we published the plan. And we can now report back on our progress. We included the tracker in the plenary documents, but I will briefly go through them. The board plan has 78 objectives. As of today, we have already made a start on 70 of them, or 90%. We have already completed 11.5% of it, with more well on the way. Many of you will remember our 5 external priorities and our 3 internal ones. Fighting anti-Semitism has rightly been our top priority. Late last year, we launched our Commission on Anti-Semitism, which is now in an advanced stage and should report over the coming months. Andrew Gilbert and the SRC division in particular have worked with police to move protests away from Jewish areas. We have worked with government to change the law to protect our places of worship. Even at the BBC, there is accountability. As of this week, Gary Lineker is leaving the BBC, and good riddance too. As we mark 80 years since the end of the Shoah, many of you will have seen the remarkable and moving Yom HaShoah ceremony put on under our auspices. On the international front, led by Adrian and the international division, we have of course been very busy with Israel and the Middle East, but we have made progress in other areas too. As we showed again this week, we are leading players at the World Jewish Congress, in the Anti-Defamation League's J7, And this month, we launched the new JE3 alliance with our French and German counterparts. There has also been much good work in terms of holding a diverse series of events that have been very popular with deputies to express the diverse range of views that we have in our community. In terms of religious freedom, in work led by Andrew and the SRC, we have boosted efforts in the workplace, launching an updated Employer's Guide to Judaism and new support to Jewish staff networks. We have received an unprecedented letter of support from the Health Secretary about tackling prejudice in the health service. And we have worked with the Jewish community of Ireland on a challenging case of a mole who was arrested there. We have forged ahead in our efforts to be more united, more inclusive, and more outward-looking. We have expanded our range of partners on both the left and the right of our community, ending the feud with the campaign against anti-Semitism, and finally bringing Highest J Corps into membership. After electing a very talented, but all-male, honorary officer team, we launched a gender equality plan within our first 100 days and achieved a gender-balanced executive for the first time in the board's 265-year history. Claire Morland and Lauren Kalis are now taking that work forward to the next level as our gender equality champions. In the regions, we have fulfilled our pledge to ring-fence £100,000 for the regions in the budget and restore regional plenaries and weekends. And we look forward to seeing many of you in Brighton at the next plenary. This week, I will fulfill my pledge to visit every nation and region in my first year in office with a visit to Belfast in Northern Ireland. And in a time when Muslim-Jewish relations are under strain, we have launched our Optimistic Alliance and played a key role in the historic Drumlanrig Accords between Muslim and Jewish leaders. Jeremy Michelson and the CED have led our work to celebrate our faith, heritage, and culture as British Jews. The Jewish Living Experience exhibition remains busily deployed around the country. We have launched the new Jewish Living online resource to make education about our community available in every school. And right here, right now, we are about to fulfill another pledge, the launch of a new British Jewish Culture Month. I have long felt that it cannot be right that the only public commemoration of Jewish life in this country is Holocaust Memorial Day, and the only compulsory education about Jews is Holocaust education. Of course, both of these are incredibly important, but we do not want the British public to know just of Jewish death and of Jewish pain. We want them to know about Jewish life and Jewish joy as well. Following my announcement at Limud Festival that the first Jewish Culture Month would take place in 2026, I can now confirm that the first Jewish Culture Month will take place next year from 16th of May to 14th of June in the Jewish month of Sivan. Today, a statement is going out and a holding page will be going up at jewishculturemonth.org.uk with information about the broad shape of the month. From now until February, we will be working with Jewish celebrities, Jewish culture providers, and local communities to launch our calendar events and begin the countdown to May. This will be a major change for the UK Jewish community, a strategic rebrand which proclaims less joy, less oi, and more joy. Later in the meeting, we'll hold an open forum about how you and your communities can take part. Ben Crown, with the renowned Finance, Fundraising and Organisation division behind him, have led our work on finance and fundraising. We ran an enormously successful crowdfund together and have been cultivating major donors to a level not seen in recent years. No more managed decline, we are going for growth. All of this even before the changes we have made to empower our deputies. I fulfilled my pledges to set about recruiting a campaigns officer on my first working day in the role and launched our new Parliamentary Advocacy Day to engage deputies directly with parliamentarians. And thank you to all of you who participated. After this meeting, there'll be training about engaging with media and social media. We have made changes to the timings of these meetings to make them more inclusive to regional deputies and made changes to make the meetings more accessible to deputies with disabilities. Our plenaries now have open forums and even a Kiddush. Friends, we are pushing forward on all fronts. The last 20 months have been an incredibly difficult time for our community, but we, the Jewish people, have resilience in our DNA. We came through the Shoah, we came through the pogroms, we came through the Farhud, and we will come through the legacy of 7th October. We will come through it together, and we will come back stronger. With our broad plan, we will together forge a brighter future for the UK Jewish community. Am Yisrael Chai. And that leads me to the Mazel Tovs and condolences. And we've got quite a few today, happily more on the Mazel Tov side. Firstly, Mazel Tov to Deputy Alexandra Boyd, who has been elected Mayor of Wilton Town Council. Mazel Tov. A triple mazel tov to Deputy Renee Wasserman on her step-grandson's bar mitzvah, her great-niece's wedding, and her great-nephew's bar mitzvah. Mazel tov, times 3. To Deputy Lawrence Julius on the birth of a grandson. Mazel tov. To Deputy Nina Morris Evans for winning bronze medal at the British Olympic Triathlon Championship. Mazel tov. To Deputy Evie Haas, under 35 observer for RSY Netza on her election as president of Sheffield University JSOC, Mazel Tov. To Deputy Sylvia Hartman on her daughter Rebbitzin Eve Chapper's appointment as co-chair of the Rebbitzins representatives of the United Synagogue, Mazel Tov. To Dame Melinda Simmons, not a deputy, but we thought this was significant, on her appointment as the UK's ambassador to Poland, Mazel Tov. And to Progressive Judaism on the historic unification reached here last week that brought together Reform and Liberal Judaism. I know that's been tried before, but it has been achieved by an incredible group of people, including our own Karen Newman. Mazel tov on that historic achievement. We have some condolences too. To Richard Cooper on the passing of his mother, Anne, and to Deputy Lee Dworkin on the passing of his mother, Carol. And with that, I pass over to the independent chair, Louise Ellman, to take forward the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil, for that important and comprehensive report setting out the board's position. I'd now like to go through a number of housekeeping rules. And first, I'd like to make you all aware that any speech, comment, or question that in any way touches on issues currently being considered by the Constitution Committee will be immediately stopped. So that is a very important position to remember. I'd remind deputies to be polite and no slander. The meeting will not be live streamed, but it will be recorded and will be available on Monday. And I'd remind you that we have members of the press on call. I'd also like to remind deputies to change their name on Zoom, if need be, to make sure they identify themselves, so we don't have iPad 3. And if you are an under 35 observer, please put U35 before your name. That's so that you can be identified for votes that come later. And I would like to encourage all first-time speakers, please to come and speak if you wish to do so. And I remind all deputies to adhere to the accessibility guidelines included in the information pack, and that means speak clearly with the camera on if you're on Zoom, and don't have your hand in front of your mouth, and don't mumble. I'm sure you wouldn't be doing that. We also have a by-election, the Finance and Funding Organisation, FFO by-election. There are 2 candidates, and they know who they are, and you're not allowed to speak in this meeting following the rules. So thank you. I've now moved to the minutes, and would you agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of March? That's agreed. Yes, thank you. Now move to questions to the President and the honorary officers, and remind you that the clock will start when you start. It will be set at 1 minute, and questioners are asked to direct their questions to a named honorary officer. And I remind you again, no questions connected with the 16th of April Financial Times letter at this point. Right, okay. Right, online. George White online, first question. Would anyone else who wants to speak please come to here in the usual way? Now you'll be called. Right, George White online.
1 minute clock.
1 minute clock.
The government this week had an excellent week. They first of all sent out a state press statement, and they were congratulated at its quality and by Hamas.
Sorry, could I just ask you to pause? Would you introduce yourself and say?
I'm sorry. My name is George White. I represent Pinner United Community.
Right.
The UK government had a fantastic week this week. They first of all began by issuing a press release that was so liked that Hamas actually sent them congratulations and thank you. As Phil said on Tuesday, they stopped negotiations on the economic deal, and on Wednesday, to add insult to injury, the government at the dispatch box considered they had another go at the UK government. And by the way, I don't necessarily agree with Phil's position about what the Israel government should or should not do. And yet, surprisingly, no press statements have been issued criticizing the government. Nobody's actually done anything. On top of which, because of what was said, it goes against the aims of the Board of Deputies. It's also, what it's also done is probably increased the level of anti-Semitism in this country. And I just find it strange that no criticism has been leveled at the British government for what they've been saying. Could you comment on that, Phil?
Right. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Philip Goldenberg, Northwest Surrey Synagogue. Torat emet natan li'amo el. God gave us, the Jewish people, the Torah, the first attempt to establish ethical values, which is at the heart of Judaism. Sadly and tragically, the present Israeli government's behavior, including the overt use of starvation as a weapon of war, is in whole-scale breach of those ethical values, fueling anti-Semitism throughout the world. President, I so agreed with everything you said in your introduction, and you rightly called out Ben-Gvir and Smotrich. But they're there for a reason. They're there by decision of Prime Minister Netanyahu to protect his personal position and keep himself in office. So when will our leadership have the courage to speak truth unto power and to call out this dreadful Israeli government and its Prime Minister? In the immortal words of Theodore Herzl, Im lo achshav, e matai.
Susan Pascoe. Susan Pascoe online.
Hi, Susan Pascoe, Neosro Community. I want to raise the issue of anti-Semitism in schools. So a parent raised with me on Friday that her daughter, who's in a school that's not Jewish, was taught in a class history lesson that Jews caused the Black Death. As we know, the Black Death was a bubonic plague pandemic in Europe in the 1300s, in which around 50 million people died. Now, as a way forward, I know we're waiting for the Commission on Anti-Semitism report. Anti-Semitism training in schools is obviously essential, as well as materials being provided to schools as a way forward. But these type of examples where Jews are made responsible for the killing of 50 million people demonstrates how unbelievably deep-seated the problem is, and how a fundamental overhaul of everything taught about Jews in Israel is essential in schools. Thank you.
Right, I'm going to ask the honorary officers to answer those questions. Phil.
Do you want me to deal with that one first?
No. I'll start with this one. Yeah. Thank you all. To George White, you said that nothing was being done. I can assure you we spent a very busy week speaking to both the UK and Israeli governments about some of those statements, and I was clear today in my words that we think it was a wrong step to move on the FTA agreement. I must say at the same time, we were not that impressed with some of the comments that came back from Israel in respect of our Prime Minister and other Prime Ministers. There seems to be a bit of an attitude in some quarters of the Israeli government that sort of echoes Millwall in the 1970s. Nobody likes us, but we don't care. And I would humbly observe to people that Millwall is not a Premier League team. And we as Zionists want to see Israel in the Premier League and acting and playing like a Premier League team. So that's the comment I would make on that. To Philip Goldenberg, look, I think I was very clear about those issues. I said about Smotrich and Ben-Gvir that they should be reined in or ideally kicked out. That is a message that we conveyed repeatedly in Jerusalem this week, and you might have seen that the president of the World Jewish Congress, Ronald Lauder, made this observation to Gideon Saar at an open meeting, and Gideon Saar said he would take that back. We continue to make that case. On the Susan Pascoe's question, I think Jeremy and Andrew would like to say something on that.
So,
Jeremy.
am I here? Can people hear me all right? Yeah, fine, thank you. Yeah, Susan, obviously this is appalling. It goes without saying. What I need from you, I need, obviously if you can send me offline, the name of the school and the contact details of the people who've been subjected to this ridiculous anti-Semitic trope, because we need facts, we need details, and then either myself or Anna Silva will contact the school and ask for an explanation about this. So that needs to be done. If you could get it to me as soon as possible, that would be great. Clearly, anti-Semitism within the classroom cannot be tolerated. As you know, for the last year, almost as soon as we came into office. Anna and I and Andrew have been, and Dawn have been dealing with potentially anti-Semitic material that's been going into schools and dealing with incidents of anti-Zionism, which is overflowed into anti-Semitism. This is unfortunately a particularly egregious case, and we need to deal with it as quickly as we can.
So I want to even add further to that, and thanks, Jeremy. So we go for the individual case. Everything Jeremy said is absolutely clear. Beyond that, whatever type of school, if it's a local government school, we'll go to the council and take it up. If it's a Catholic school, we'll get onto the Catholic Education Service. If it's a Church of England school, we'll be on to the Anglicans. Whichever type of school, we'll follow that up and work it through, or to a trust school, we'll be on to the Academy Trust and working out why that's happened or why it's not happened. Beyond that, we're working with the Department for Education, and our hope is that very imminently there will be an answer to the training of teachers in schools and an award of, and there's a package from the government of around £5 million that is dealing with anti-Semitism in 3 different ways. And we're hoping that we're going to see results on that in terms of the training of teachers in schools. And I'm hoping the board will be a part of that as it develops. And the final thing in there is, people should look at it. On part of the Department of Education is a website called Education Against Hate. And if any deputy wants to look at it, wants to rigorously go through it, I'd urge them to do so and come up with any ideas and thoughts on how we can work with the DFE and their subset, Education Against Hate, and make a difference in the resources there. So a lot on you as well, please.
Adrian.
That's not my area of expertise, but a year ago I read a book about the history of the world looking through pathology, and I believe it was the case that Jews were less prone to the Black Death because of washing hands and use of the mikveh. But of course that doesn't mean that the Jews caused the Black Death. It just meant that there was some immunity, or arguably so. Anyway, just thought I'd point that out as a fact, potential fact. I should say, read the book.
Thank you. Right, next speaker, please.
Robert Stone, Finnish Reformed Synagogue, the synagogue of Dame Melinda Simmons, and the medal-winning Nina Morris Evans. I'm incumbent upon the State of Israel and Jews, of course, are Jewish values. And an important Jewish value that Philip Goldenberg mentioned is summarized in Proverbs, chapter 20, verse 21. If your enemy is hungry, give him bread to eat. If he is thirsty, give him water to drink. How much more does that apply to those who are persecuted by your enemy, the people of Gaza? And I'm delighted that the President has said in his statement that Israel must ensure a good supply of aid and Hamas must not steal it. We've been making representations to various authorities to this effect over recent weeks. I am delighted at that, but I would only ask that the President would speak out about it in public so that the people of Britain don't think that the Jews support it. So please speak out about it. Finally, I've got evidence about the Black Death. I gave a talk in Limud. I will send it to you guys, okay? Pope Clement said it wasn't the Jews' fault, and Casimir III of Poland admitted the refugees from the pogroms. So
Time's up. Time's up. David, Daniel Levy online.
Thank you. Would the board consider making representations to the government calling for the release of Elizabeth Surkov, the Israeli-Russian hostage who has been held in Iraq for the last 2 years?
Thank you. Right, next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Karen Worth from Nottingham Liberal Synagogue. I'm the co-chair of Salam Shalom Kitchen in Nottingham, which is a Jewish-Muslim partnership which has been working successfully for 10 years. I was really keen to build a board's optimistic alliance in Nottingham, and I've been working for several months on this. At the recent meeting of this fledgling alliance, a decision was taken by the majority to not move forward with the optimistic alliance. It was felt that being associated with the Board of Deputies would preclude most Muslims from getting involved, as the board isn't seen as standing up against the suffering of Palestinians and the extreme actions of the Israeli government. When I made you, Phil, aware of this, you told me of all the things you were doing behind the scenes. I, as a deputy, didn't know about some of that work that you're doing. So how on earth can the greater public know? All they have to go on is the public statements, which are pretty one-sided. We want the Optimistic Alliance to flourish and grow. It's time to make public statements which people like myself can point to show how the board truly represents the range of views within the Jewish community, and to demonstrate to our Muslim allies in particular that the board speaks out for true justice and sees the plight of Palestinians. Thank you.
Gerald Fox online. Gerald Fox.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, it's Gerald Fox, Bedfordshire Progressive Synagogue. Mr. President, there's two things I'd like to add to your statement. One is the fact that Israel has always defended itself since its inception against terrorism until the 7th of October. The other thing is that Israel built a wall between itself and the West Bank that denies any claim that people make that that Israel is trying to accumulate land from the West Bank. And those two things should be highlighted in my view. Otherwise, I think your address was absolutely excellent. Well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Michael Reich from Mosaic Reform. I've got two particular points. The first is, we've been talking a lot about the BBC and the problems within the BBC, and you had a meeting with the BBC not too long ago, Phil. What about Sky News? Sky News itself has become worse, in my opinion, continuously as against the BBC. There is absolutely no even-handed way that they deal with matters. The other matter I want to concern is recently there's concerns by the press and in the UN, among other people, by lack of food and aid going into Gaza. Well, I think now is the time for us to recommend to the Israeli government to send Western reporters in so they can directly observe what's going on, and we can have a proper thing rather than the Hamas reporters telling us all the time of what's going on. So may I recommend that?
Thank you. Sheila Gould online.
Thank you, Louise. Good afternoon, everybody. Sheila Gewald, Cardiff United Synagogue. Can I please have a comment? I have tried to contact the HOs about a proposed motion by the co-op at their AGM, which was calling for a ceasing for all trading with Israel, and it was backed by 73% of their members, that they would remove all Israeli produce from the co-op shelves. Can I please have a response? Are we going to make representation or a statement or contact anybody? My Cardiff community in South Wales would like a response, please. Thank you.
Right, I'm pausing here and I'm asking the honorary officers to respond. Phil, do you want to respond to any of these questions? There you are.
To Robert Stone, we have made those positions public on Radio 4 on the 11th of April. I spoke about all those 4 objectives. It is something that we raise publicly, and we'll obviously continue to do so. That what we say in these meetings is hardly private either, but I take the point. We'll of course continue to advocate those views publicly as well. I'm going to ask Adrian to deal with Elizabeth Surkoff and that question. Karen, yes, I mean I was sad to hear about that. Obviously we don't force ourselves on anyone, but just to make people aware of the things that we are doing in that area. You know, as I said in the last meeting, we don't always engage with megaphone diplomacy, we engage in diplomacy. And this week in the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs and at other places, we were urging the Israeli government to let aid in. As we've said today, it's really very important. And we held meetings with Ayman Adair about the situation of equality of Israel's Arab citizens and the two-state solution, as well as Omdim B'Yachad. Our work with Muslim communities continues apace. I mentioned our work on the Optimistic Alliance and on the Drumlanrig Accords, but you know, furthermore, we made absolutely sure that the new legislation on places of worship covered our Muslim friends as well. We've been advocating on an anti-Muslim definition, anti-Muslim hatred definition to tackle that problem. And just a couple of weeks ago, I wrote a joint op-ed with the Chief Imam of Scotland on defending our shared religious freedoms. Most of that is in the public domain, but I'm very happy to make it available to people. And we hope at the right moment we can reconnect with the initiative that you're doing so well in Nottingham. So thank you for that. Gerald, I didn't get the first point, so I'm sorry if I missed this one. In terms of the accumulation of land, look, at the moment, the Israeli government is holding weekly meetings to approve new settlements. And all we would say is we do not want unilateral actions by either side which make peace harder. And that is something I think we have to observe and we have to say. The situation in the West Bank, as I said, is extremely concerning, out of control in some sections. Michael Reich, I think Andrew will speak more to Sky News, but we have made representations. And for those of you who struggle to sleep, I'll be on the Sky press preview tonight on Sky News, so we'll be obviously on screen there as well. Sheila Prinonda, good afternoon. I'll ask Andrew to respond on the Co-op AGM. So do you, Andrew? Yeah.
Right, Adrian.
Just to deal with Elizabeth Zurkov, so there've been reports about her position in the last couple of days with a suggestion of a deal being done between the United States and the Iraqi government. She's being held by a Shia militia called or terrorist group called Kataib Hezbollah, and there's various speculations to how successful her release may be, with a stumbling block being the suggestion that the Americans release someone who's has a terrorist record. So all we can do is, we don't have any standing with the Iraqi government, seeing it's led by or seems to be by reports led by the United States, is to raise that with our counterparts in the ADL and World Jewish Congress, and also with the Israeli embassy here, to offer encouragement such as we can do. But I don't think there's a great deal that we can do as a British community in that particular case.
First of all, on the co-op, we've been aware of this for quite a while. The first thing was we wanted to protect Jewish staff. The first people that raised it with us were from a member of Jewish staff at the co-op. And what we got was, and we've had a response in general about this being advisory only on the co-op in terms, and they sent a detailed response to us about how procurement is done by the co-op. And we are in correspondence with, and a further letter is going out around this resolution, in which we really point out a number of things. The first is we want to ensure how you protect your Jewish staff and what you're doing. The second thing that we're working on in that letter is clarity that this doesn't work. It also leads to anti-Semitic pieces around kosher food on the shelves or other food, and real concern about what's behind this initiative and where it's coming from. We want to therefore discredit such initiatives and raise that with the co-op and in that way. So I think that's work in progress. I don't know how many, just as a thing, how many actually of you ever shop at the co-op? Okay, that's helpful. I thought most of you only went to M&S, but we can use that as evidence as well, that you are all shoppers at the co-op as well, and I'll take that on board. The other thing was on Sky News. I want to say that just on Friday, we had a meeting with the BBC, and in that meeting with the BBC, this was two very senior employees, and this was on anti-Semitism training at the BBC, something they are going to invest in for all of their employees. So that is a remarkable step in the right direction for the BBC. In terms of Sky News, we had a meeting with them, a series recently. Jonathan Levy, their managing director, is Jewish and keeps talking about how wonderful they are and how receptive they are. We raise things with them, but thank you for raising it. It's very much on our mind.
Thank you. Anna Stella, online.
Okay.
Anna Stella.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Anne Crook, Menorah. This question is for whoever decides which public statements the board releases. Given the announcement by our government last week that it has decided to suspend free trade negotiations with Israel, which garnered praise from Hamas, why did the Board of Deputies leadership not put out a statement condemning our government? Such actions by the British, French and Canadian governments can only serve to embolden our enemies, leading to anti-Semitic terrorist atrocities such as we've just seen in Washington, D.C. How long before our government's words and actions result in the murder of Jews on our streets too? We need to be holding Keir Starmer and David Lammy to account over this, not staying silent on the matter. Thank you.
Next speaker, please. And could I remind everyone to state their constituency?
Thank you. Julian Berman, Radlett Reform. The NGO bill currently in the Knesset would impose an 80% tax on donations to NGOs from you and me if the Israeli government doesn't like that NGO, and it will bar many NGOs from petitioning the courts. This threatens Israel's strong and vibrant civic society and reduces checks and balances on the government. MK Gilad Kariv has warned that the bill may create a boomerang effect. And that boomerang effect is that European governments are already threatening to introduce similar taxes and stricter regulations on Israeli donations to charities and organizations in our country. Given these developments and the potential for further deterioration in relations that could impact both Israeli democracy and diaspora Jewish communities, what is the board's position on this legislation? Thank you.
Abby Hass online.
Hello, I'm Abby Hass from RSY Netzer. I just want to talk about how young people feel really let down by Jewish leadership. We feel like we're not being listened to, and I just wondered if Phil took that into account.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Harry Lamper, under 35 observer for St Albans Mazorti. Sorry, just a quick note. Plague is a majority vector-borne illness and is not passed person to person, so kashrut and hand washing are not scientifically plausible reasons for Jews being less susceptible. Anyway, question to the HOs. 4 days ago, Yotam Ottolenghi, an Israeli Jew, posted on Instagram his condemnation of the use of starvation as a weapon of war. He has since been labelled by fellow Jews as a coward, a capo, a traitor, a spreader of blood libel, hateful, and a sellout. Seeing as the board explicitly stated that food and humanitarian assistance should never be treated as a weapon of war, and in his opening statement, Phil said that one of the board's aims is to ensure the flow of aid, will the board now explicitly condemn the vile abuse hurled at Ottolenghi and other Jews by members of their own community for stating the same thing?
Jeremy Harvadi online.
Very much. Thank you very much indeed. Jeremy Havardi from B'nai B'rith UK. Two things. First of all, congratulations, Phil, on the British Jewish Culture Month, which I'm sure will be an absolutely tremendous success. And it's something that we would love to contribute to in any way possible. The second point is about UNRWA. There's no going back to the failed status quo of the 6th of October, 2023. And one aspect of changing that status quo is making the case that UNRWA can have absolutely no role whatsoever to play in Gaza or in the West Bank, but particularly in Gaza, which of course now needs reconstruction. Is the board making itself part of the conversation in thinking about alternatives to UNRWA that will actually work better for both Israelis and Palestinians? Thank you.
Right, we'll go back to the honorary officers now for their comments. Phil?
First of all, I realise I missed the Mazel Tov. In one of my papers it was in and it wasn't. First of all, Mazel Tov to Sue Haddon on becoming a grandmother for the first time. Anne's question, I did answer Anne that we thought that the suspension of talks on an enhanced free trade agreement was a mistake. I can assure you that we've been very, very busy on engagement with the Israeli government and the UK government over the last week in terms of the statements. As I say, sometimes we're not about megaphone diplomacy, we're about real diplomacy, and that's really important. I would urge people to refrain from hyperbolic statements blaming UK leaders, Israeli leaders for the rise in anti-Semitism. I think we have to be very careful about that. I just think we just have to be a bit restrained about that. To Julian's question about the NGO bill, it is of concern. We met with lawyers and others representing the concerns about that a couple of weeks ago in London, convened by the New Israel Fund. And we raised it with both government and opposition while we were in Israel. We are concerned about some of the impacts of that, and we made that clear. Abby, listen, I know, look, there are 2 Jews and 3 opinions. I travel the whole country listening to a whole range of different views, and we do incorporate those views into what we say. Friends, sometimes it's being said that there is a lot of division in the community, but actually it is in the strongest traditions of the Jewish community to try and balance universalism and particularism. Rabbi Hillel said, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? If I'm only for myself, what am I? And we hold these 2 things very much in tension. That's not a bug in the system, it's a feature of the system, and we should be very proud of it. So I do listen to you, and I do listen to everyone, and I try and maintain what I think is the consensus position. Harry, listen, I went to your Limud talk about viruses. It's a very good one, and it should be repeated, I'm sure. On the serious question of viral abuse, I've spoken out about viral abuse that we've seen in our community, not just on this question, but on other things. We need to see this tampered down. Too often we see people who live apparently in echo chambers who are just unable to hear a different perspective. I'm very proud of the fact that here at the Board of Deputies we have a diversity of opinion, we hear each other with respect. I wish that could be mirrored elsewhere. We continue to advocate social media and other places, and we try and use our influence to say this is not the way. And I think what we see here today, we're hearing a diversity of views, is absolutely the way that we should be operating. Thank you. One more. And to Jeremy, thank you for your good wishes on Jewish Culture Month. I know B'nai B'rith does excellent work in that, and we look forward to working with you on it. As regards UNRWA, this is a bit of a two-parted answer. We are concerned about UNRWA and the particular way that we've seen challenges in the way that it's operating over the last 20 months and even longer. Allegations that, for example, hostages were held in UNRWA facilities, speaking particularly about Emily Damari, but also that UNRWA employees were involved in the 7th October massacre. Also, the fact that UNRWA uses a completely different definition to any other part of the UN on terms of who is a refugee. And we believe that long-term, UNRWA should be folded into the UNHCR, the major refugee body of the UN. We don't see why there should be two separate ones. And we've been speaking to some fairly major NGOs who say that UNRWA has effectively failed in terms of its mission. However, I am very conscious that if we were to replace UNRWA immediately, that would collapse the current aid system. So it needs to be a graduated change, not overnight. We say that should be a graduated change towards fusion of the two with UNRWA, because we don't want to collapse the existing aid systems such as they exist, because otherwise it is the IDF's responsibility to deliver aid, and I don't think that's an ideal situation to be in. So that hopefully explains our position, and we are making that clear to the UK government and other authorities.
All right, next speaker, please.
Deborah Cohen, Belsize Square Synagogue and chair of the Social Justice Committee. Members here will know that Hayas Jacors relatively recently become a member of the board, and we are co-hosting with them a webinar on the 17th of June on immigration and refugees. However, I wanted to ask the honorary officers if they have had a chance to consider the recent white paper on immigration, which Hayas Jacor have written risks actively damaging integration and social cohesion by limiting access to citizenship, tightening pathways to safety and lengthening routes to settlement. Many British Jews and our forebearers actually are immigrants who came to this country, and we find this a very difficult thing. So my question is, have the honorary officers had a chance to consider this? Because I think it's something will go into the SJC.
Karen Maxwell online.
Hi, Karen Maxwell, Liberal Jewish Synagogue. First of all, Phil, I wanted to commend you on your opening comments. They were excellent, really, really on point. But I just want to double check. I think you said 3 times in your recent answer that you do welcome diversity of views at the Board of Deputies. I just want to check that's what I understood you to say. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Ruth Hart, Bournemouth Reformed Synagogue. Phil, while you were visiting in Israel with the rest of the delegation, I understand you met with Ayman Odeh, who is a well-known supporter of the Intifada. In fact, I think he even had to be removed from the podium in the Knesset the day before yesterday. Now, other than the fact that he is probably the extreme mirror image of two other members of Knesset that you'd like to see chucked out. Do you feel the same about Ayman Odeh? And what did he have to say about the current war?
Thank you. Next speaker.
Daniel Grossman, UJS. The Israeli government has been starving Gaza for over 11 weeks, with politicians like Bezalel Smotrich openly declaring that Gaza will be entirely destroyed and its population ethnically cleansed. Figures in our community are speaking out. The British government is finally taking action, and even Yair Golan and Ehud Olmert are publicly recognising the atrocities being committed. The board, however, continues to meet with figures overseeing these crimes, like Gideon Saar. This is both untenable and morally bankrupt. I have no confidence in the leadership of the board. It has both failed to act ethically and also to represent the increasing diversity of opinion within our community. While I hope it can become a moral and representative body again, I will be resigning following this meeting in protest and will not seek re-election at my shul as originally planned. What good are private words in plenaries when you continue to meet with Israeli government officials and oppose any real action to stop their crimes? How many more Palestinians have to be killed and Israeli hostages sacrificed before the board speaks out against Israel's genocidal assault on Gaza?
Okay, right. Clive Lawton online, and then I'm coming back to the honorary officers and the president. Clive Lawton online.
Good afternoon. I'm very conscious of the fact that a significant sequence of deputies from Liberal and Reform and Masorti synagogues have come and spoken up about the Israeli government's attempt to starve out the population of Gaza. I've not yet heard anybody, I might have missed it, from an Orthodox synagogue, or indeed many people from an Orthodox synagogue over the age of 35. So I just thought I should say that there are Orthodox synagogues and members of Orthodox synagogues who think it is reprehensible to use humanitarian aid as a weapon of war. The clue is in the word humanitarian. And I also want to endorse that people should go and look at Mishlei at the book of Proverbs, chapter 20. Absolutely right. It's completely against Jewish practice, and we should all be deeply embarrassed and ashamed of this. It's what's called technically a Chilul Hashem.
Right, President Phil, would you like to answer some of those points, and any other officers who wish to?
Thank you very much indeed. I think Andrew will answer Deborah Cohen's question. Karen Maxwell, yes, absolutely. We do endorse, we do try and create a space for a diversity of opinion. You're hearing it very much here today, and I'm very proud of it. Since we were elected, we brought in independent chairs to make that more possible and open forums. We're really keen to make this a place where the diversity of the community is heard respectfully and listened to, and I thank you for your question. To Ruth Hart's question, the meeting with Ayman Odeh was a very, very good meeting. In fact, it was just after he had been forcibly removed from the Knesset podium. His arms were, I think, hurting, he told us, from having been dragged off. Not for backing the Intifada, as you say. He wanted to pass a bill, which was controversial about, but, I think we should hear about it, to ban denial of the Nakba, as he called it. And so that was the context, not sort of support for the Intifada, I think. Look, his comments of the current war is he wanted it to end. And he's actually working towards an initiative to bolster the two-state solution. He's very keen to lead that. He's leaving the Knesset at the end of this term. He told us about an initiative. He wants British Jews and the diaspora communities to support Arab communities in Israel in terms of that. And we're looking at the papers he sent us with great interest. I think we want to see Arab leaders making the case for the two-state solution and end to conflict and equality, and we want to work with them to support that. That doesn't mean we agree with everything he says, but I think it was actually a very positive meeting. I think Adrian and Michael, who are with me, would agree. Daniel, I'm sorry to hear that you're leaving. Goodbye. But hopefully, Lehitraot, you'll hopefully come back at some point soon. And to Clive, absolutely. As I said, food should not be used as a weapon of war, and I think that is a view held across the community.
Thank you. Adrian.
I just wanted to add to what Phil said about the meetings that we had in Israel, actually. So particularly the meeting with Yair Lapid and Ayman Odeh, who are from very different political backgrounds and traditions and communities. But given a lot of the tone, understandably so, of the views expressed here. They were actually, they expressed some hope and a belief in a brighter future. And that was actually, they actually provided something which is in very short supply at the moment. It's quite a lot of chizuk, a lot of strength to what we're doing. And so I think they were very useful meetings and informally quite happy to enlarge on what they said.
Thank you. Andrew?
Deborah, thank you very much for raising the immigration bill. At the moment, we've got a limited capacity, and with Toby joining us, we will increase that capacity to work on parliamentary affairs. We're currently working on, I think, about responses on about 7 different bills, working on the crime and policing bill, the equality submission. When we looked at the immigration bill, we felt that it was great that HSJ Corps was leading a response to government. We felt it was their business and their very much their speciality. It's delighted that your Social Action Committee, Social Issues group will get involved in that as well. If your group then feels there are specific areas not being taken on by HSJ Corps, raise them with us. Otherwise, I think generally we were looking to be supportive of HSJ Corps' submission and work along accordingly. If you feel there are areas we should not be supporting or different threads they're not picking up in the immigration bill, please come back to us as well. So absolutely, but let's use your committee's capacity to really add on to that and build from there.
Right, thank you, Andrew. Next speaker, please.
Hello, Carol Abrahams, Catford and Bromley United Synagogue, and thank you, Clive. As we come to the end of the academic year, can the Department for Education please send to all academic institutions and the examination boards a list of all the chagim for the academic year beginning September 2025, so that they have no excuse to stage exams on Shavuos and to have Freshers' Weeks on Rosh Hashanah and various other such things. There used to be a thing called an academic calendar, but somehow that disappeared into the internet. It still exists, nobody uses it. Remember, my area, most of our children are at non-Jewish schools. And can I just very quickly say, in advance of the 1st of June, Mazel Tov, happy anniversary to Phil and all the 8 honorary officers.
Paul Edlin online. I think that's going to be the last one, looking at the clock.
Thank you. Paul Edlin, Jewish Council of Scotland. I just, in reply to Clive Lawton, I'm a member of an Orthodox synagogue in Glasgow, and I, for one, certainly do not approve of the use of hunger as a weapon of war. But I will say this, while I make that point, and I hope the Israeli government will deal with it, we also have to remember the agony that the people of Israel are going through, not only with the hostages, but with the huge number of their young men dying and the terrorism that they face on all fronts. So we need to bear that in mind and keep our loyalties in hand. And we also need to remember that the government of Israel is democratically elected, and people like Ben-Gvir or Smotrich, who we may not like or agree with, are still democratically elected and part of the government of Israel and deserve the Board of Deputies' respect in all matters. The government of Israel is democratic and we should support it. Thank you.
Any last comments from the AJOs?
Right, last comments from the officers, President.
First of all, Andrew mentioned Toby Green. Is Toby here? Do you want to stand up, Toby? Give us a wave. Our new Director of Public Affairs, give him a warm welcome. First of all, to Carol Abrahams, the short answer to your comment is yes, we will be engaging on that. In the meantime, this is how fast information travels. Sammy Burkhoff from the Union of Jewish Students has already responded that both UJS and Jewish Chaplaincy are making sure university and academic institutions where my colleagues, Jeremy and Andrew, will work with the DFE to make sure that's there. It's in our Employer's Guide to Judaism online and in physical copy as well. We can't always replace that, about I think the next 30 years or something. Anyway, quite a lot of years into the future. Paul 5 years. Okay, we'll republish it before then, anyway. And Paul Edlin, I would say this, you mentioned supporting the Israeli government. I think it's important to say the Board of Deputies is a non-party political organisation. We're politically neutral. That means that we neither tend to support nor oppose governments. We tend to look at issues and objectives and say how a government is comparing to those, both here in the UK and indeed Israel and other places as well. We make an exception, though, for extremists. But Bezalel Smotrich and Ben Gvir, I'm afraid, as I said, every time they open their mouth, they make things worse for Israel, and the things they say are completely appalling and unacceptable. And I think it's our duty to speak out on that.
Right, thank you very much to the President and the honorary officers for replying to that very wide range of questions, but I think very important questions with, I think, recurring themes in them. And now I'd like to move on to the next item, the vote on the admission of pages partnerships for Jewish schools. And I'm going to ask David Mendoza-Wilson online to introduce this item, please. Oh, is he here? Oh, sorry, I was told you were online. I'm sorry.
Sorry, what Ben just said there, will the shirt work with the microphone? And I hope so. I'm going to be very brief, slightly longer though than I was on Norwood last time. The first thing I'm going to say is I actually spotted I made an error in the note, and that is on who is going to serve as the deputy for pages. What they're suggesting is in fact that they'll have a formal voting process by the Board of Trustees on who will be their deputy. I think besides that, everything in here is pretty self-explanatory. It will be pages are asking to enter as a normal organization, so we don't need any questions on that or who they're going to put forward there. It will just be, as usual, they will have one deputy, as all other organizations do. With that, I'm happy to take any questions, whilst wholeheartedly suggesting that this application is approved.
Right, are there any questions on this? Yes, I can see a hand at the back. Can't see who it is. Okay, yes?
Come around, Dory.
Okay. Can you come round, please, to the mic?
Should have been online.
Hello, I'm Dory Schmetterling, New West End Synagogue, Bayswater. Pages is, of course, a good organization. I just wondered what the participation is or number of staff or people involved, just to get an idea of the size of it in one way or another. Thank you.
Any other questions on this? No, then would you like to answer that?
I can't give a specific answer, I'm afraid. So I don't think that my notes said how many. Oh, here we are. Yes, it does. With almost 42,000 children attending 138 schools, pages claim they to play a crucial role in supporting Jewish schools in various capacities, and I think we can all agree with that. So there we are, around 138 schools are members of pages. Does that answer Dory's question?
The staff team itself is quite small. It's probably about 7 to 8 people, roughly. Yeah. Not to quote me on that, but it's not a major organisation staff-wise.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Then we proceed to the vote.
Those who are in favour, there's a motion on the board. A motion is hereby tabled that pages be admitted as a member organisation to the Board of Deputies pursuant to Article 4B of the Constitution. All those in favour, please either put your digital hand up or in the room your real card up. And I don't get a vote. No, I'm not going to vote. Don't worry. That's to Louise. And I can see it's going to be almost overwhelming. We will gather all the cards in. And can I ask my colleagues online to count the numbers online, please?
Thank you very much. Very good of you. Voting's going well your way this week, these last couple of weeks. So thanks.
I'm seeing quite a lot of people online who have not voted yet, unless they're planning to abstain or vote against. So if you're thinking of voting in favour and you're online and only paying half attention, please do. And I will say the same thing when we come to voting against. I will be consistent. Under 35s should not be voting, of course. They should be out of the room. Under 35 observers. Under 35 deputies are encouraged to vote. Great. Could I ask the team to WhatsApp me the vote online, please? Okay. Could we please take the votes against, please? Okay, I'm seeing nobody voting against in line. I'm seeing nobody voting against in the room. Doesn't matter. Okay, it's been overwhelmingly passed. I will count the cards, but it's been overwhelmingly passed. Thank you all very much.
Right, next item, update from the Under 35s Israel mission. I'm going to invite Sapir Tal to speak to us about that. Sapir. Thank you.
It is the short person problem. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I recently had the opportunity to join the mission to Israel, organised by the Board of Deputies and UGIA, for the Under 35s group. It was, least to say, the most intense 3-day journey with a diverse group of people with the main purpose of seeing Israel, not just through the headlines, but through our own eyes. A full summary of the mission is included in your plenary meeting papers, but in brief, we focus on understanding the trauma and resilience, exploring how people were coping in Israel. Notable visits were to Kibbutz Belfasim, Nova Festival Massacre Site, volunteering at Leket, and meeting the director of BICOM, which is the Britain-Israel Communications and Research Centre. My main aim for the trip was to understand what happened on October 7th from those who had actually lived it, providing myself space to grieve, to listen, and to be open myself to the perspectives beyond our own community. Because it's easy to get caught up in an echo chamber, so I wanted to understand it not from myself, but from others, Israelis, and people that are actually on the mission that saw the situation as well. Meeting Martin was probably something I'll carry with me forever. He was from Kibbutz Melfasim, and although the kibbutz was the least affected, this was not by chance. On the day of the attacks, he provided a vivid description of what had happened and how the community defended themselves. After the area evacuated, the kibbutz was spread out all over the country, and he advocated for the displaced community, negotiating an entire hotel for them to live in temporarily. But would you call over a year temporary? Despite the trauma, the community found ways to rebuild and celebrate life. They held 6 B'nai Mitzvahs, welcomed 13 babies, even one in a bathtub, and even had a wedding. The hotel that they lived in was sustained by volunteer support and donations. Martin would probably reject this idea that I have, but he was a modern day Moses, showing us how one person can carry out a whole community. Another highlight was meeting the director of BICOM. I didn't really expect this to be a defining moment, but his clear facts about Israel's political landscape helped me understand why context actually matters in advocacy today. He helped me realize that advocacy isn't just about slogans that we see nowadays, but actually about truth, nuance, and resilience. If you ask me about how this mission changed me, I would say it's deepened my commitment to my community, my faith, and my advocacy work. The trip didn't bring me to this country that I knew and loved. It brought me somewhere completely different. It brought me back with a deeper sense of curiosity, courage, and connection. And so I do want to thank the Board of Deputies and UGIA for this opportunity and for Noah organising it. But I want to do more than that. I want to issue a call to everybody who couldn't come. This is not a tourist ad to come to Israel. Many of us will stay glued to our phones following October 7th, waiting for news to return of hostages, or sadly reading more about the attacks around the world, including Israel, Gaza, here in the UK, or anywhere else. So this is an invitation to bear witness, to be present, to listen, to ask more questions, and to come back with a deeper understanding of what that day meant, but also how Israel is working and what it means to the affected, reflect and shape it into our advocacy work. As an Israeli, I've always come to see my country as this democratic, rooted in peace, equality, with its strength coming from its people. And whether that might be slightly naive, in many ways that's still true. But however, this trip has showed me the depth of grief and disillusionment within the Israeli society, especially a deeper context in the lack of trust in its leadership. And it's reshaped how I understand the current reality. So 3 things that I take away from this is the power of holding complexity, giving hard truths a deeper appreciation of how layered this conflict and its people really are, the power of active listening, and it's reinforced the need to react less and listen more, to be present without judgment, and the power of holding truth. In a time when it's really easy to feel pressured to align, conform, or stay silent, it's worth standing strong, kindly, firmly, and honestly. So it reaffirms to me, I will always say I'm Israeli, and I'll always say I'm Jewish. And in the words of Phil Rosenberg, Am Israel Chai.
Thank you very much for that report. And now we come to the Maccabi Fun Run. So I invite Michael Ziff to tell us about that. Michael.
Thank you very much indeed for allowing me to say a few words about the Maccabi Fun Run. So on Sunday, the 22nd of June, the annual Fun Run, and this year it's going to be very much related to the Jewish community in Israel, takes place at the Saracens Rugby Stadium and in the fields beyond there in Hendon. Many of you probably know the place very well. Many of you probably even live near there if you're in that part of London. It's a great event. We've already signed up 96 charities. It's a record already. We want to bring 10,000 people during the course of the day. We want to bring and make sure that everybody enjoys themselves. And it's not just about running. It's about participating with the charities. It's about working with the Jewish community. It's a great event for everybody. So if you're a grandparent, take your kids and your grandkids and walk and do the 1 kilometer. If you fancy going with 4 friends, go and do a 5K run or a 5K walk. And if you want to be super fit, and that's definitely not me, but probably Phil, go and run 10K. And if you want to be really fit and super fit, do the 10K, the 5K, and the 1K. Now, there are some serious parts about it. The chief rabbi said to me last year, when we were waiting for the 1K to start, he said, this is the greatest event in the Jewish community every year. It is fantastic. It is brilliant. He said, it's cross-community. Why can't everybody partake? I spoke with, and I know that the progressive group have had a very busy time, but I'd ask that you please give some consideration to try and bring some more numbers. We've tried to talk with you, and we want to bring more shuls, more people, and more attendees. We need you all to come. We need all your charities to come. We need you to bring your friends. It's a really important event. It's not political, so it's another great reason to be there. So show support, come, support Jewish people, support Jewish life in Great Britain, support the Maccabi Fun Run, the Maccabi Day. It's a brilliant opportunity for us to be together. Let your hair down and don't argue with people. I know for Jews that's difficult, but let's just try and do it for once. And let's work together as a total community, because this is your great opportunity to do so. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Michael, for that report and for all that you're doing. And now I've got an announcement of the election results, admission to... Oh, sorry, I didn't see. I'm going to give the results of the election for the admission of pages. 120 votes in favour and the votes against, nil.
Hey.
Thank you. Right, there's a hand up.
Jerry.
Yes, Jerry, yes. Yes, Jerry, can you come to the microphone?
Another vote well.
Jerry Lewis, Hampstead Synagogue, father of the board. With permission, my lady, just a brief mention on the under 35s. Fascinating report. I'm so delighted my initiative from many years ago has found results like this. Can I ask, is this going to be an annual event? If so, I'll be delighted. And with your permission, I'd like to ask, just for a straw poll from all of us here, the one thing I never managed to achieve previously was to give the under 35s the right to vote. Could we just have an indication how many people will be prepared to vote for it if I put forward a constitutional amendment?
Right,
Okay.
Thank you for your comments, Jerry. No, we're not taking that item, voting item today.
It's not, I just wanted to...
we're not doing that. We're not taking the item as a voting item today. Your comments have been noted, Jerry, and also that you're the originator of this idea, and that is correct. Right, Phil, I think you'd like to comment.
I just want to say on that point, it is in the board plan that we review the under 35 observer scheme. It will be done in a kind of proper way and ordered way by relevant divisions. It's something we're very appraised of, and I thank you for raising it.
Okay, right. Thank you.
I can answer.
Yes.
The under 35 trip to Israel was only made possible this year because of the generous funding of UJA, which was referred to. And of course, we would love to do this again. I would do it again at the moment that I had the funding in place. So it was a wonderful opportunity, and we're very grateful to UJA for their support of that trip.
Right, we'll now have a comfort break, and I've asked you to get back before 14:35. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We now move to the item open forum for discussion, and this meeting it is about the British Jewish Culture Month that you've heard the President talk about. So Phil, would you like to introduce the item?
Thank you very much indeed. Friends, it often feels at the moment very heavy being Jewish. Discussion about Jewish life often focuses on anti-Semitism, on the war, on the Holocaust. And all of these are important things to discuss, and it is important that we discuss them and we focus on them. But actually, Jewish life is about so much more than that. And it's one of the great pleasures I've had of traveling the country, seeing the thriving Jewish communities we have all over the place with great traditions and heritages that I think we need to celebrate. I love the UK Jewish community, which is probably a good qualification to do what I do. Ask me at the end of 3 years whether I still do, but I do. And I believe if we invite people in, to our communities, to our cultural centres, they will love us too. As I said earlier, I think we need to strategically rebrand the community, less oi, more joy. It's really important because actually what's the point otherwise? How do we infuse our young people about being part of this amazing community if it's all about pain and heaviness? We want joy, light and laughter. So I want a month where we celebrate the Jewish contribution to our society, our economy, our culture, where we look at Jewish laughter, Jewish comedy, food, literature, music. I want all of that. And I want us to think about how we do that together. We've been thinking for quite a few months about which month it should be in. I just wanted to explain why Sivan. We wanted it to be in a month that wasn't too congested with Jewish festivals. We wanted it to be in a month that wasn't really already claimed by another important cause, so we weren't in direct competition with other things. And we wanted it to be ideally during the summer, but not in periods like the Omer and other times when it would be difficult to do all the things we might want to do with it. So we said, you know who doesn't have, almost all 12, I think all 12 months of the year have been claimed by some cause. Well, we're going to take a Jewish month because no one else has claimed that. And Sivan, as you know, falls in May and June. It's often when the schools are still in process. The first week of it, of course, is still the Omer, where some activities are not allowed, but actually it centers Shavuot and the giving of the Torah, and cheesecake as well, which is a great way to introduce. And for 3 weeks of the month, you can do everything, and that is a wonderful thing. So that's why we've chosen that month. And I think it's a good teachable moment, actually, to explain the Jewish calendar is different. I want us to use this time now to think about how your communities can get involved. Obviously, we've spoken about how we were going to try and get Jewish celebrities out and major Jewish contributors to our public life out there. We want to talk about Jewish cultural centres, not just this amazing Jewish cultural centre, JW3, but also the Manchester Jewish Museum, the Scottish Jewish Archives. Across the country, there are amazing Jewish centres that can celebrate, and of course, all your own synagogues. And in terms of that, we want to deploy up and scale up the Jewish Living Experience exhibition. So many of you will be hosting it during that month as well. So that's an option that we're hoping to expand the provision so that more communities can deploy that in that month. Think about how we deploy your talents. The other thing is that we're going to be asking national institutions, and I know Andrew's been speaking to the BBC and the National Portrait Gallery, who are really interested in this. And we're hoping to generate commissions for Jewish artists, Jewish providers, and to really raise the tide for all of that amazing things that goes on. So I just want you to use this session to think about what your community, what your organization, what you would contribute to that month. I'm going to ask Jeremy to speak a bit about how we roll from this moment of the launch until the fantastic month next year on Sivan.
Jeremy.
Thank you, Phil. Really, this is going to be very, very exciting indeed. Somebody was just telling me, quite rightly, he said, when I said it's going to take place in Sivan, we were just talking just before in the break, and he said, well, you need a good, lead in time. And absolutely right. So really, the time starts now. We're going to, now it's been sort of announced to the world. People will, no doubt it will appear in the newspapers. And of course, people who watch this online tomorrow will also get to hear about it, and we'll make sure that word gets around the country very, very quickly. Between now and the 2nd of February, we really want to be getting people to firm up their ideas. This is your chance. We talk about deputies' involvement, particularly when it comes to the communities and what's going to go on in the communities. One thing that I would really like to see, as well as people opening their shuls, people opening their community institutions, but also if we can get some of the organizations like the Jewish Literary Festival and Jewish Film Festival, if we can get them to have little taster sessions in some of the regional communities, so that it'll spread their reach, and also give some of the smaller regional communities maybe a chance of something that otherwise they couldn't normally get. But really, I hope that you will become involved, really developing what you can do in your community, and we'll do our very, very best to support you. So hopefully we'll be largely in place by the 2nd of February. And then just after the Holocaust Memorial Day, in January, about a week after the Holocaust Memorial Day, we'll have the soft launch, where it will go live. It will go, it will go live online, and people will be able to see roughly what's going to be available. We'll obviously have to have a communal diary, a cultural month diary, to make sure that we're not clashing. Different organizations are not clashing with each other. And then, of course, it will actually take place in the month of Sivan, which is the 16th of May to the 14th of June, 2026. And as soon as that is over, we'll start to plan for Sivan 2027, which will be from sundown the 5th of June to sundown the 5th of July, 2027. Is it available? Who is it aimed at? I say it should be aimed at the wider community, but there should be events that Jews themselves could enjoy as well. But basically, when framing our events, we're looking at really projecting ourselves to the wider community. Will it be in London? Well, of course it will, but I want it to be all over the country. As someone who's spent the last 10 years working hard to make sure that the perception of the board is changed and that we're not just seen as London-centric, and I think those who know what's going on realise that we're not. I want to see events going on all over the country. With the big cultural organisations like Manchester Jewish Museum, I had a great meeting with the acting CEO, Gemma Meek. She's really keen on getting in the museum involved. We also had an excellent meeting in Birmingham, myself and Sarah Radovan and Dawn Waterman. We had an excellent meeting, and Birmingham people are interested, as they are indeed in Leeds. I had a meeting a while ago with Alan Benster, of Millim in Leeds. So will it be Jewish culture or culture by Jews? Now here I've listened carefully, because I'll be honest, I was probably thinking more in terms of Jewish culture, but people quite rightly said, well, hang on, Jews have had an impact on all sorts of areas of society, and we should be celebrating that too. In fact, my nephew by marriage, Jeremy Sassoon, who started off life as a psychiatrist and became a jazz musician, as you do, and he's been good enough to play at Ronnie Scott's, which we don't let anybody play there. He has a thing called Mojo, Music of Jewish Origin. And it's gone down very, very well wherever it's played. In other words, people who were Jewish but didn't necessarily produce Jewish music were producing music, obviously brilliant music, the great Hollywood people, etc., etc. Maybe we're also, as part of Jewish Culture Month, Kojo, culture of Jewish origin, and the impact of Jews in all forms of society. So I also want to see the organizations where Jewish people are involved, like the BBC and other cultural organizations, also they've got a vast range of Jewish material, and I hope that some of that will certainly be aired in Jewish Culture Month. Finally, how do we make sure that we are protected? Because obviously there will be security issues. Obviously we'll work closely with CST, and we'll make sure that no bad faith actors will be able to put on anything parodying Jewish culture, at least not under our badge, that's for sure. So this is your chance now to become involved. Please come back to us with any idea you've got for how your community can be involved, and maybe it might be a case of several communities joining together to become involved. Thank you.
Right, well, thank you very much for that introduction to this. Right, would anyone like to comment or ask questions? Would you come to the mic, please? Right, I'll take Clive Lawton online.
First of all, can I applaud this? I think it's sorry, can you all hear me? I applaud this. I think it's a marvellous initiative, and I'm all for the joy rather than the oi. Thank you, Phil. I'm sorry that you plunged straight into the culture wars, Phil, by suggesting that the restrictions of the Omer stand for the first days of Sivan. Different views about that, so we can have a debate, no doubt. That'll be an evening. But I just want to mention from Bristol, we've recently had a situation where a venue here called Strange Brew, a performance venue, has just suddenly cancelled a performance of the marvellous klezmer influence group Oy Vavoy, because one of their performers or associate performers is an Israeli woman who produced an album last year, and the album artwork contains watermelons. And for those of you who don't know, watermelons are a big Palestinian thing. And the venue has decided under pressure that this demonstrates support for Israel's policies in Gaza, and therefore they can't tolerate it. So let's just face it, that we are going to enter into the culture wars. We're going to be face to face with that.
Time's up.
And we will have to deal with bad faith folk.
Right. Andrew would like to reply to this very specific point.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, sorry, on the Oi Vavoy piece, we did write something up. I think we put it online as well. Also note that I think Malcolm Levy, former one of the HOs at Richmond United, his son is a member of Oi Vavoy, and I'm going to, thanks Josh for telling me, and I will follow up directly with him on that. And but please also, been worked with the BBC and National Portrait Gallery. They've got huge archives, and many other places have got huge archives of Jewish offerings. Please come back with anywhere you know, and I'm sure together with the board, we'll try and make those venues part of Jewish Culture Month.
Thank you. Right, next speaker, please.
Paul Hart, Mosaic Liberal Synagogue. Many years ago, sorry? Okay. A few years ago, my synagogue, when we were in Wembley Progressive, we used to have our own group called 326. And we used to go around to old age homes. We even appeared at the Watford Palace. Are you talking about that kind of stuff? Because we used to put on old time music hall, Hollywood musicals, and I've got a lot of this on DVD at home, if that's the kind of thing you're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, next speaker, please.
Andrew Garfield, Highgate United Synagogue. Wonderful initiative, and I know because of the work that I've been doing with Andrew Gilbert on the Media and Culture Subcommittee of the terrible time that people in the sort of broader cultural space have had over the last couple of years, and it is alongside sort of education, health, a sector where there are a lot of Jews facing extraordinary pressures. Being ghosted, gaslighted, banned for performing. And so this is a great initiative. One of the points I wanted to make, though, is that alongside working with established institutions in the Jewish cultural space, we should be aware that this is a huge opportunity to bring into our bosom a lot of people in the cultural space who identify as Jews, and it's a space where there are a lot of people who work as self-employed, independents, a lot of people in arts, writers and so on, who don't have the protective mechanisms and often don't have the celebrity that some of the people we know.
Time's up.
So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Next speaker.
Hello, I'm Tessa Milligan. I'm an under 35s observer for Yahad. I strongly agree with Andrew on the point of it's becoming a lot harder to be Jewish in the creative industries, to have your work platform, to be able to seek out friendly venues and so on. So this could really be providing an alternative platform to give those people a place. It's also why I would really caution you against being overly restrictive over what can be involved in the Cultural Month, not just about Jewish culture, but about Jews who do culture, whether it's explicitly Jewish or exclusively for a Jewish audience, because when we make stuff, our Jewishness informs what we're making, whether it's for a Jewish audience or not. Very quickly, if I can ask a question on behalf of Hayden Cohen, who isn't here, he's at a stone setting. Is that okay? I'm just aware of the time. He's asked me to ask on his behalf what progress has been made on substantive elements of Jewish Culture Month, and how have you ensured that CED members and wider deputies, especially those with relevant experience, have been and will continue to be included in the decision-making process? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, next speaker. Thank you.
Harriet Goldenberg, LJS Synagogue.
Yes, I would endorse what Tess has said and Andrew, and certainly about Jews doing culture as well as Jewish culture. But I also just wondered, how's the selection process actually going to happen? Because hopefully you're going to be swamped, but also we want to make sure that it's of a certain standard. So I'm just curious how that's going to work. Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, Ido Ben Shaul, Reform Judaism. I'm not representing a particular synagogue, as you can guess, but I come from Southeast London, and my area has a very rich Jewish history, which is literally ignored. There are almost no Jews living in my area. And this is something that I am trying to tackle together with my local MP. But the East End and our side of the river, Rotherhithe, Surrey Quays, that area has a hidden cultural heritage that I would think is a good idea to try to revive using this cultural week. And I'm very happy to participate in that. There are 2 archives that are accessible and can be used for this purpose. The Museum of London in the Docklands, and there is a pictures archive in Rotherhithe, which is almost unknown. So that's just a point. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi. Hello, I'm representing Seven Hills Shul. We already have a vibrant klezmer and Yiddish song culture in Sheffield, and Klesnorth meets annually in Yulgreve in Derbyshire, not far away. Our klezmer Caileys already have support from non-Jews and non-affiliated Jews. A very small group of people organise these events throughout the year. Last year we combined them with Hanukkah and Purim gatherings. So what I want to know is what support might be available for Jewish cultural events such as, but not only, klezmer Caileys, held during the month of Sivan next year. And if I may, it's not my constituency, but I wonder if the board is in touch with the Edinburgh Jewish Cultural Centre. They have run a full programme of events throughout the year, and it would be interesting to know how events in Sivan might be branded as part of the Year of Culture. Thank you.
Right. Yes, next one, please. Thank you.
Hi, Sammy Burkhoff, UJS. Our community has a wonderful habit of doing the right thing in the wrong way, and this won't affect me, but will be the next team and hopefully many teams to come. I should flag that May to June is exam time for university students, A-level and GCSE students, as well as end-of-term exams for school students. And it would be a real shame if this took place without including the future and present of our community. Please also don't forget about the expertise held within JSOCs and Jewish students when planning this, and especially learning from what they have done. UJS has been putting on Jewish Experience Week for the past 5 years, and this year Edinburgh JSOC put on a Jewish Culture and History Week. I think this is a brilliant initiative and would love for UJS to be able to support it as completely as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one.
Harry Lampert, under 35 observer for St Albans Masorti Synagogue. Will there be something in place for anyone who's trying to organise these events, especially if they're doing online publicity, training-wise or whatever, to help them deal with the inevitable anti-Semitism which comes with promoting Jewish culture online?
Thank you.
Sapir Tau, under 35 observer for Maidenhead Synagogue. This is more on guidance for areas of what we can do, and not to toot our own horn, but we do a lot of stuff already in our own synagogue, including the external kind of bodies that we have in Maidenhead and surrounding areas. So what we can do further would be a great guidance on this, and whether this is many open days or events, because for including MPs and inviting local people, how do we get them and other things on board? Guidance on several communities getting together, especially if we are in the rural settings, but also the diversity of Jews. As someone who's part of the British Indian Association, do we include those aspects and those associations that are external to the Board of Deputies and everywhere else, but also how do we get these involved in various aspects as well? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, next speaker.
Robert Stone, Finchley Reformed Synagogue. One of my guilty secrets is that I play the bassoon. And the mention of klezmer gave me an idea. I frequently go to klezmer courses and days, and what I notice is that the majority of musicians who come to learn klezmer at those courses are not Jewish. The last one I went to was 2 weeks ago. There were about 20 musicians, including the one of the tutors was Jewish and one wasn't, and only 3 of the other musicians were Jewish. So I hope we can encourage klezmer events where non-Jewish and Jewish people can play klezmer together.
Karen.
Thank you. I'm Karen Newman from the Liberal Jewish Synagogue. Just 3 quick things. We recently had an evening at the LJS where Felicity Kendall spoke, and she said she recently decided when she went to the first rehearsal of a play that she was in to have her Mogen David visible. And there were people coming up to her saying, "Oh, we didn't know you were Jewish," and she described that moment. So I think the issue about Jews who do culture is also really important. The second thing I wanted to say is just to say that if you wanted to do something where you were beaming people in from different Jewish centers in the country, the LJS has the technology to do that. Obviously, I can't pledge my community, but you may wish to talk to them. Also there, in addition to having an Anish Kapoor Holocaust memorial, we also have a 21st century piece of stained glass, which is quite nice. And the last thing I wanted to say is, amongst the long list of things, if you could remember the LGBTQ Jewish activities somewhere, it would be great to profile our commitment to diversity in that way. Thank you.
Michael.
Thank you. Michael Ziff, I represent the United Synagogue, and yes, at the moment probably also doing something to do with Maccabi. I assume that sport has something to do with this, and therefore certainly I will commit Maccabi to working with you. Obviously, I will also, in my capacity as chair of London Jewish Forum, because I think there's something there that we can work with you as well, and we'll certainly make sure that happens. On the sport, Dr. Katz just said to me, you've got the fun run, it always takes place mid-June. Can it take place at the same time? I think the answer will depend very much on the rugby as to whether we can get the ground or not, as the case may be. But as far as sport is concerned, there's a lot that we can do. We should also look at, in that cultural area, there are a lot of writers who are Jewish sports writers. I know this last month, 3 have passed away, but there are still a lot out there. And it's worth, I picked up those reading the Times, the obituaries, but it's something worth us looking into and working with Maccabi on. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Nani Choga, Liberal Jewish Synagogue, under 35 observer. 2 really quick things. Firstly, I work in the world of secular education policy, and as well as sometimes dealing with issues of anti-Semitism, one of the really big things we grapple with is that, you know, there are lots and lots and lots of schools and colleges in the country where there is not a single Jewish student, and a lot of kids simply have never met someone Jewish before, don't have much of a sense of Jewish history or culture in England. And so I think and these sort of months are a really, really useful thing for teachers to peg their teaching to. So I think really important that we reach out to education bodies and make sure teachers know about this ASAP, so that they can start planning those lessons and really bringing some Jewish culture into the classroom. I was going to say something else, but I'm out of time. So.
Thank you. Janet Tressman online.
Hi, Janet Tresman, Liberal Judaism. When we celebrated our 250th anniversary, the Metropolitan Archives put on a wonderful event, and they're somewhere near Clerkenwell. They've got enormous space, and I think we were about 100. It was probably more. It was catered, and they had memorabilia going back 2 centuries of Jewish life, and I thought they should be approached. And there's a lot of other organisations like the Zemel Choir and plenty of people on the impacts of Jewish life, such as parliamentarians, sports people. There's a whole gamut of organisations, and we should kick it off with a massive event, and that's one of the ideas. Thank you.
Mark Drucker online.
As I am both of, I'm Ashkenazi, but I'm also partly Sephardi, and one of my ancestors was a founder of Bevis Marks, and others of my ancestors came from Morocco. So I'd hope that there's significant Sephardi participation. It's not just klezmer bands. Thank you.
Sheila Giwalbo online.
Thank you, Louise. Sheila Giewolb, Cardiff United Synagogue. I take the point about reaching out to education and to non-Jewish schools and teachers. We support over 130 Jewish Sacre reps who need to be brought in so as we can let right across the UK know about this amazing initiative. Also, I'm a member of the NASACA, the National Association of Sacres. We have a regular briefing that goes out to all Sacres, and this is another way we can promote this amazing event. Thank you.
Right, next speaker.
It's a very quick point. Karen Worth from Nottingham Liberal Synagogue. Though I think it's a lovely idea, branding this in Hebrew month, the difficulty is that that's going to move year on year. And so if we want to have something that builds, over time and that is accessible for non-Jews, I don't know how that's going to work.
Johnny Weinberg, Jewish Action for Mental Health. Could you tell us, in terms of funding, have you looked at Arts Council and other arts funders? And will you also be putting forward a briefing for local communities as to how they can also tap into the many different funding streams that will be there locally for arts funding?
Right. Thank you. Right, I'm going, Adrian, I'm going back for comments now from the officers. Adrian.
In terms of Jews who do culture, of course, I immediately thought of the best-selling song of all time, over 50 million copies, which is White Christmas by Irving Berlin. And I also wanted to shout out for a distant relation of Deborah and mine, Monty Sunshine from the Chris Barber Jazz Band. It'd be good if he was somehow referenced in the programme. And then finally, I just wanted to say, I did actually front a band. It was called Mick and the Hairdos, and it's actually in tribute to Michael Goldstein, who is is still president of the United Synagogue.
Right, Phil, see if you can do even better than that.
Follow that. Well, the first thing I was going to say is that it just shows how many wonderful talents we have, some of them hidden. We look forward to hearing more about the hairdos and possibly your singing, Adrian. I know you have a beautiful, beautiful voice, as does Paul. And this is the thing. I hope that this will be a platform for all of you who are, I know we've got comedians, musicians, people involved in actors, people involved in all sorts of different arts, and we are going to lift up that part of the community. Might I just say, that was just such a lovely part of this meeting, hearing those inspiring things that are happening around the country. I know, a few of you, Andrew and Tessa, spoke about the difficulties that are facing Jewish artists, and I think this is about countermanding that, creating a platform where we go and challenge venues like the one in Bristol and others and say, what are you going to do for Jewish Culture Month, and really put the onus on them to give a platform to Jewish culture, not to no platform. But it's a really important part of, I think, what this can achieve. Hayden is a good question. So obviously this is an important part of including deputies, hearing from all of you. I know CED will continue to do that work. And as we go through the following months, we'll be drawing on you. I think those of you who've kind of identified an interest in this area, kind of great to bring you into it and make this everything that it can be. Harriet, really important question. How do you manage quality and quantity? And I think that's important. I think what we'll try and do, and this is an idea that's evolving, but we'll probably have a sort of reference group that kind of looks at submissions as they come in, make sure that they're obviously not offensive, but tries to be as diverse in the terms of the way that they take a Jewish culture and culture by Jews in. But you're right that we need to make sure it's not, not anything that will let us down in terms of, we want to impress people, not to depress people. So that's important. I think Ido and a couple of you speaking from perhaps smaller communities, I know South East London, champions you are, Ido, Jean-Vier, Carol, raising the flag for South East London, and I feel it's well represented, it is. We was absolutely in train here, absolutely in place. But this will be an opportunity to lift up those initiatives. Some of them are already going on. I know Sapir mentioned Maidenhead. Things that are already going on, giving them a bigger platform even, and really drawing together some of the fantastic things that are already happening. And I think that's true, Janet, of what's going on in Sheffield. I know it's really impressive too. Sammy, yes, exam season. Look, not all students will be taking exams at that time. And so we'll hopefully get a good engagement of those students who are not at that stage of their university. But you're absolutely right. We want to be as inclusive as we possibly can. And there's so many great things happening at university. We want to include people as much as possible. I'm going to just say, actually, at this moment, I know, Sammy, this is your last meeting as president of UJS. We're all going to be very sorry. You've been absolutely marvelous. So let's give Sammy a huge round of applause. And we hope to have you back in another capacity as soon as possible. Harry, about how this will help with publicity and how we deal with anti-Semitism. Absolutely. Look, we're going to be creating a calendar into which people can submit those initiatives and we can try and promote them. My ideal is that by February we'll have a pretty good calendar and we'll use that as promotion, and then we'll invite further submissions. So we'll work with the bigger institutions first so that we've got really strong promotion from February, but obviously at that point we're going to hopefully inspire others who hadn't yet thought of it or hadn't yet got round to it to put in more. But we're hoping that that calendar and the comms we'll do around it will really be a festival, both online, in social media, digital media. We started talking to comms experts about how we can really make the most of it. And of course, we'll get advice, as Jeremy mentioned, from the CST to make sure security is absolutely in place. Sapir and I think Karen spoke about making sure that we're intersectional, and I think there's huge opportunities. Also, Mark mentioned that as well. As the first president of Mizrahi Heritage, part Mizrahi Heritage, of course, and indeed of Indian Jewish heritage, of course, we're not going to let that go. And it actually is quite nice that there is an overlap with Pride Month, and I think there are opportunities to celebrate intersectional Jewish lives and experiences in that time, and I think we'll encourage that specifically. Michael, of course, sport is welcome. We're really excited about that and really celebrating Jewish sportsmen and women. I'm conscious that there's currently an exhibition at Lord's, which will not be there anymore, or it's finishing, but perhaps we can get that and display it in other places. It's right opposite Liberal Jewish Synagogue, in fact, so perhaps we can just move it across, but it's really, really great stuff. Noni, I think that, was that your first speech as an under 35s there? Well, first of all, let's give a by the wonderful Noni. You're absolutely right. We're hoping to use this as a platform for educators, to get schools involved, to get local authorities involved. Colleagues from Holocaust Memorial Day Trust, of course, do excellent work, and Mitzvah Day indeed, have spoken about helping us to do some of the brilliant things that they've been doing to get schools, local authorities, share that learning. We really want to use this as a platform in that way, and I think you're absolutely right to refer to it. Janet, London Metropolitan Archives includes our archives, actually, and we want to celebrate the board's 265-year history. So yes, we'll be calling on institutions like that and across the country. I know when I was in Liverpool, there was talk about all the amazing heritage assets that they've got there, bringing them together. This is an opportunity to celebrate things that already exist and give them a platform. Bevis Marks, Mark, you mentioned, obviously, as the longest-standing, the longest-running synagogue, and the people who founded us will, of course, make Bevis Marks a key destination in that as well. Sheila, Sacrays, absolutely. I know Jeremy and the team will work on including the Sacrays. This is obviously a huge opportunity in that space. Karen, you're right. Now, the one thing I would say is Sivan doesn't move. It's the Gregorian calendar that moves. I think it's important to mention. Sivan was there first. But look, the truth is, of course, this is a communications question. We have the dates for Sivan way into the future, and we'll be able to make sure that we're advertising. But like I say, there is the opportunity with it to use that as a point of education as well. So I think that's something we will look to do. Johnny, listen, I think you've just offered yourself your services to help us fundraise and draw on pots of money in local locations. We'll obviously seek to see if we can draw in funders. We've had some interest already. I won't speak about it yet because we're just talking about communications, but some interesting support, but really good to talk to you. And I think, Jeremy, perhaps you'll liaise with Johnny on what we can offer in terms of guiding people towards local things. And Adrian, yes, where is White Christmas in it? Of course, it is an important Jewish contribution to culture, one worth looking at. I don't know if Jeremy wants to add.
Just a few points. Thank you, Phil. As far as Jews and sport, yes. Just after I finished at Manchester Jewish Museum, in fact, they put on an exhibition which was opened by the Leodensian Anthony Clavane, who's written a number of books. One called Does Your Rabbi Know You Are Here? About Jews and sport. Well, I'll have to. I've got it at home. I'll have to check that one out. And secondly, about the connection between the Jewish community, Leeds, and of course the football and Leeds United Football Club. And so I'm quite sure we'll be able to get something that I know will be a big seller, Jews in sport and Jews in football. Yes, I mean, to emphasize the point that Andrew Garfield, people, Tessa Milligan, etc., said that, yeah, I mean, I've been won over, no doubt about it. There will be Kojo, there will be, culture of Jewish origin and Jewish involvement. And I know in the past, Owen has mentioned to me about the importance, Owen Power, that is, has mentioned to me about the importance role by certain Jewish people in the fight for LGBTQ recognition and respect. And I'm sure that will certainly be taken into consideration. So there's lots to do. You've given us lots to think about exactly how we go about this, and we'll be getting back to you as soon as we can.
Thank you for the questions and answers. Clearly a lot of interest in this, and a lot of deputies with a lot of knowledge and experience in all these areas too. The next item is the new speakers programme, where we invite new deputies to introduce themselves. The first one, Debbie Barnett.
Thank you. Debbie Barnett, Deputy for St Albans Masorti Synagogue. Long ago, before the President was born, I was on the board, representing Young Mapam. For those of you who don't know, Mapam was a left-wing Labour Party in Israel, founded in 1948 by members of Shomer HaTzair. And it was there that I first met Joe Millis, late of this parish. At my first board meeting, I received a grus from both the President of the United Synagogue, Sidney Frosch, father and father-in-law of two of my oldest friends, and the chair of the Reform Synagogue, Marcus Bauer, my mother's cousin. Like many of us, I wouldn't be here under current immigration legislation. My father was born in Ukraine, but his father had a British passport, and they were able to leave after the Russian Revolution. My maternal grandfather left Galicia in his late teens and worked his way across Europe. He didn't have a British passport and was interned on the Isle of Man during the First World War as an enemy alien. My parents were GPs. My mother's father believed his daughter should have the same level of education as her brothers. When they took over their practice after the war, they wrote to all their patients inviting them to join their newly formed National Health Service list. For private medicine, they could go elsewhere. My father's eldest sister married an Austrian who left Vienna after Kristallnacht. They went with their two children to Mandate Palestine in 1947. Their eldest son served in Nachal. His best friend lived on a moshav near the Gaza border. And on October the 7th, aged 80, he lay on the steps of his house next to the bodies of his wife and stepdaughter, pretending to be dead. My sister was field worker for UJS and has lived in Tel Aviv for over 40 years. After she retired, she managed the open clinic at Physicians for Human Rights. I lived in Israel for 18 months, teaching maths at Mitreshet Sde Boker to English-speaking immigrants, and then in an Aliyat HaNoah youth village outside Ashkelon. I returned to the UK to get my PGCE and ended up staying. I taught in inner London for 6 years and then moved into the new and exciting world of online learning, or computer-based training, as it was then called. Robert asked me to talk about how the board has changed since I was last a deputy. In some ways, a huge amount. In others, not so much. The advent of social media means there is far more communication between deputies than previously. I'm not sure that this is always a good thing. The discussion as to whether progressive and liberal Jews are real Jews still continues. 40 years ago, Jerry Lewis, now father of the board, assured us young, enthusiastic deputies that a lot of things happened behind the scenes. That's a phrase that we've heard used this afternoon, and sadly, I feel that in many ways, plus ça change, plus ça reste la même chose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. And Alexandra Boyd.
Hi, Alexandra Boyd, member of Wessex Liberal Jewish Community, and I would like to tell you about my Jewish heritage. Embracing my Jewish heritage and community engagement. My Jewish journey is shaped by my grandmother's sacrifices. Forced to hide her heritage to survive, she lived in silence, and my grandfather, despite objections, secured non-Jewish papers for her. My grandfather was a navigator in the German Luftwaffe. To keep her safe and an act out of profound love for her. Choosing to embrace my Jewish identity, I seek a future that aligns with my heart. Though raised Christian, it never felt right going to any of the courses I had to go to. Returning to Judaism was a decision rooted in blood and belonging. My conversion was not just about formal recognition, it was about proudly reclaiming what my grandmother had to deny. She had sworn her children to secrecy, yet growing up with her, I absorbed values that now define my Jewish identity. Inspired by women like Rabbi Baginski, Karen Newman, Rabbi Judith Levitt, I found my place in liberal Judaism, a movement that champions equality and diversity. Being Jewish keeps my grandmother's memory alive, and I know she would be proud to see my children embrace their heritage. Our journey continues through Cheder lessons, summer camps, and my son's bar mitzvah. From sharing challah in celebration on high holy days with friends, our family is deeply woven into the Wessex liberal Jewish community. It is vital to bring this experience into broader engagement. That is why I serve in different roles, including as the first ever Jewish disabled female councillor and mayor in our town. I'm a wheelchair member of SACRA, an accredited speaker on Judaism in schools. Educating young and diverse cultures fosters understanding, and my women's interfaith group, which I founded, reflects this belief. Building bridges, amplifying voices, and empowering our community through knowledge. To be Jewish is an honor. My heritage, to be Jewish is to honor my heritage and to those who came before me. It is about ensuring my children stand tall in their identity and to be proud young Jews. Thank you for allowing me to share this journey with you.
Thank you. And now Harry Lampert.
So for those who haven't met me, but might have noticed that I try to get involved with these things. I'm Harry, I'm the Under 35 Observer for St Albans Masorti. In my professional life, I am a podcast producer, a former TV and live event producer, and a former reporter and researcher for the BBC Radio Science Unit and World Service Technology Programme. I write scripts, I interview people, and I edit day in and day out. My job is quite literally to put words into other people's mouths. So I wanted to talk about something that was very close to my heart, professionally and personally, and I hope is something that can unite everyone on this board, which is the degradation of language. I've found myself sounding like a broken record for the past 19, 20 months. Words have meanings for a reason. The purposeful destruction of the common vernacular is a tactic I've seen employed by both the far right and the far left. It allows everything to be the worst and deliberate ambiguity to be interpreted in the most extreme way possible. We regularly talk about calling out anti-Semitic dog whistles, these people, the global elite, cosmopolitans. Words we all know mean Jew. That being said, we as a community must also be better than to do the same, because I hear similar phrases in the other direction. Phrases like, our enemy is an Amalek, are not specific, they're nebulous, they allow the speaker to avoid accountability. These terms come with a calculated avoidance of specificity and can be interpreted however the listener desires, allowing them to project their personal prejudice and emotions onto the subjects of the statement. For a long time, we in the Jewish community have been the victim of this style of attack, and we should be better than those who obfuscate their words in a similar way. If it is not possible to clearly state who one is talking about, then maybe one should be staying silent. Now, in my final kind of 70 seconds or so, and at the risk of becoming a young Jerry Lewis, I do want to briefly channel the father of the board and quote the Constitution. Deputies must treat fellow deputies, board employees and others with respect, courtesy, honesty and fairness. We are a diverse group with a huge range of opinions on almost everything, and this is something that should be celebrated. That being said, it is at times quite clear that some people hold nothing but contempt for others. And there's something else I would like to make clear. You do not have to like me, and you do not need to believe I am worthy of respect. But as a member of this board, you are obligated to treat me with it nonetheless. Representing the diverse community that we do is an honour, and we shouldn't forget that. And we should certainly not forget that every single one of us has been selected by our organisations to represent them. We are equal here, and we should treat everyone in the manner in which we desire to be treated. Respect and courtesy are not a suggestion, they're an instruction, and one we should all be following. Thank you.
Well, what inspiring and important contributions, and very diverse too from everyone. I think just a reminder of the wealth of talent and experience and knowledge that we have in this board. So thank you very much. I'm now going to turn to the President, to Phil, for his closing remarks.
I want to thank Deputies for another excellent meeting. We've held diverse views, we've heard them together, and I think it was a really constructive and positive expression of Jewish life in this country, so thank you. A few things that are going to be happening in the next little while. First of all, today, a new vote begins for the Finance, Fundraising and Organisation by-election. Yes, a moment of great excitement, eagerly watched by a lot of people. The links will go out at 4:45 today. You'll all get them. The deadline for voting is 2 o'clock on Tuesday, the 27th of May, and result will be notified on Wednesday, the 28th of May. Widely anticipated. Do get voting. I also want to remind you that immediately after this meeting, and a lot of you have signed up for this, there'll be a media and social media training in Arts and Learning Room. Follow myself or Noah. It'll be just directly above here, I believe. So do come up. I think it should be a really great session. It's part of us empowering our deputies. As I said, empowering our deputies to empower our communities, to empower this board of deputies is what we look to do. And I look forward to seeing many of you there. I think it will be a really good session. The date of the next meeting is our regional weekend in Brighton from the 4th to the 6th of July. It is going to be incredibly exciting. Among other things, the Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology, Peter Kyle, who happens to be the local MP, will be addressing us. So a really great opportunity to hear from him. There's going to be loads of opportunities to explore Jewish culture, the range of diverse communities there, the amazing Jewish Cultural Centre. It should be really excellent. And so if you haven't yet booked, please do. It's going to be brilliant. And I'm delighted that we've restored the regional weekend as well. Really important thing to do. Friends, life at the Board of Deputies is never boring. And I imagine that the next few weeks and until we next meet will be an exciting period of time. I want to particularly thank my fellow honorary officers who are volunteers, who give their time, who give so much to this community. So let's give them a round of applause. And our incredible and dedicated staff led by Michael Uyghur, who go above and beyond every single day for this community. Let's give them a round of applause too. And with that, I declare us finished, on time, under budget. Thank you very much indeed.